Hello everyone, and welcome to a video where we pay tribute to the first Grandmaster ever from Iceland. That is Friedrich Ólafsson, of course, and we've covered a couple of his game on the channel so far. Now it's time to show you one that I still haven't covered. It is from the Portoroz Interzonal tournament where he faces none other than 15-year-old Bobby Fischer. And you might be thinking, okay, 15-year-old Bobby Fischer. For those of you who know Bobby Fischer, you know that doesn't matter how old Bobby Fischer was. He was always Bobby Fischer. And this is the tournament where Bobby Fischer qualified for the candidates tournament of 1959, the legendary candidates tournament of 1959. And Friedrich Ólafsson, up until his death on April 4th of this year, was the last surviving participant of the legendary candidates tournament of 1959. And you guys know how much I appreciate the 1959 candidates tournament. I would show you the game Ólafsson played against Fischer from that tournament, but I already covered that game. If you haven't seen it, really an awesome one. Will be the first link in the description below. But yeah, let's check out this game. We've discussed Ólafsson couple of times on the channel, but yeah, he was obviously Iceland's first Grandmaster. He was the for some time the president of the Icelandic Chess Federation, and also later on a member of the Icelandic Parliament. Did so much for the promotion of chess in Iceland. I'm sure many children took up chess because of him. He was in chess his entire life, and he played well. He played against the legends. Nowadays, people maybe have a discussion who was the greatest of all time. Was it Fischer? Was it Kasparov? Was it Magnus? But in the era, well, in this era, the golden era of chess, there was no doubt who the greatest of all time was. So yeah, let's check this game out. Yeah, he was 90 years old when he died, and he was born on January 26th of 1935. You guys all know who was world champion at the time. Most likely, if you don't, it was Alexander Alekhine. He briefly lost the title to Max Euwe in 1936, but then regained it later on in 1937. So yeah, also not a bad time chess-wise to be born in. But yeah, let's check out this game. And I never used this photo of Fischer, but I always used the murky one. So I thought, okay, for this one, for paying tribute to Friedrich Ólafsson, let's use a nice photo of Bobby. So let's check it out. Friedrich with white opens with pawn to c4. He opts for the English opening, which again makes me very happy, as I've been learning how to play the English. I've been an e4 player my entire life, so I've decided to explore other options, and that makes me very happy whenever I see a c4 now. And okay, pawn to c4, but we will not be having in English. Fischer replies with knight to f6. We have knight to c3. Pawn to e6, knight to f3, and pawn to d5. So we transpose with the d4 into the queen's gambit declined. And now with bishop to b4, we go into the Ragozin defense. And I forgot to mention, this game was recommended by Gunnlaugur Thorpolsson. So thank you for recommending this game. I mean, it was a great choice, so thank you for that. So bishop to b4, and now the bishop g5 today, the most popular. Not sure which was the most popular in those days, but even now c captures on d5 is a close second. So maybe it was the main line. I kind of don't think that one where you capture a pawn in the center could be the main line. I think bishop to g5 was also main line back then, but c captures on d5 second most played. E captures on d5. We have bishop to g5. And pawn to h6. We have bishop to h4, and now castles is the most played move here. Bishop to f5 also can be played. Fischer goes for pawn to c5. He wants complications on the board. We have pawn to e3 and knight to c6. We have rook to c1, and here Fischer plays pawn to c4, which is the top move recommended by the engine. And here the position has never been reached again, and for a very good reason. Is just not all that impressive for white, which again makes you see just how strong Bobby Fischer was at 15 years of age. He was not even a grandmaster in this tournament because okay, he qualified for the candidates 1959 candidates tournament by placing 6th in this tournament. And they said, okay, well, we can't have just a non-grandmaster playing in a candidates tournament, so they awarded him the grandmaster title. Friedrich Ólafsson, on the other hand, he got his grandmaster title earlier this year, earlier in 1958, and he was a bit older than Bobby. He was 21 years old at the time this game was played. Fischer was, like I said, 15. But okay, let's see how they play this completely unexplored territory. Friedrich continues with bishop to e2. Okay, makes sense. You want to castle kingside, and then try and exploit this maybe overextension that Fischer made on the left side of the center. Bishop to e6 by Fischer, and now castles kingside by both players. Castles, we have knight to d2 and the bishop back to e7. And here, this is probably where Fischer could have played it a bit more precise. He could simply continue developing. You already played with the bishop. On the other hand, you probably want to capture and play pawn to b5. The only thing that's stopping you from playing pawn to b5 is this knight on c3. And maybe you can just even wait for pawn to a3 and then capture and then play pawn to b5. Pawn to b5 is a move you really want to have here. However, he played bishop back to e7. You could also capture right away. Also not a terrible idea. But he played bishop back to e7, and now Friedrich said, all right, I'm just going to challenge this structure of yours with pawn to b3. Fischer played pawn to g5, bishop to g3, and now bishop to a3. He went after the rook on c1, and Friedrich just defends it with rook to c2. Not sure if it's Friedrich with a hard K, but yeah, could also be Friedrich. Friedrich plays rook to c2, although he could have sacrificed the exchange right away with b captures on c4. Something like captures, rook captures, bishop captures, rook on c1, and after queen captures, d captures on c4, you go after the black king. This looks very good. But still, with your pieces like this, not an easy decision to make. So he played rook to c2, and only now after knight b4, attacking the rook when the rook has nowhere to go, he decides for b captures on c4. We have knight captures on c2, queen captures, d captures on c4, and now knight to b5. And here Bobby realizes his mistake. The bishop is hanging, and there's no good way to handle this. He goes bishop to b4, bishop to e7, perhaps a little bit better, but not by a lot. Bishop to b4 was played, and now knight to c7. And the thing is, Friedrich is not going after the rook on a8. He's going after the bishop, and then if Fischer recaptures with the f-pawn, he's just gonna play queen to g6. And the problem is, what do you play? You could play something like queen to d7, for example. You play queen d7, okay, knight captures, and then you capture with the queen, but then bishop captures on c4, and you just get so much for this. Plus, also, the f-pawn is now pinned. It doesn't matter that it's not there, and there's just no good reply. If the queen moves, queen g6 is happening, and if you go rook 8 to c8, which sort of pins the bishop, you just move the queen. Queen d3, and now you will have to give up the exchange with rook captures on c4, otherwise queen to g6 is just devastating. So it's hard to say at which point Fischer lost track of this, probably at the point where he played bishop back to e7, and now he returned it to a3 and b4. So it's, usually we have a lot of horsing around. This is, I don't know what's a good term here. A lot of bishoping around sounds poorly phrased. But okay, bishop captures on d2. There's no other move you can go for. Knight captures on e6 and f captures on e6. He invites the queen to g6, and while it is very much playable right away, Friedrich just goes bishop captures on c4. Now with the threat of captures, also queen to g6, and he says you can defend that, and I'm just going to go after the bishop on d2. And Fischer decides to go for queen to e8. The problem is trying to save the bishop will not end well. You'll just go queen g6 check, and then just gobble up everything, completely destroy all of black's defenses. And if knight to h7, then you will go bishop to e5 check, and after king to g8, just bishop captures on e6. And that's it. There's nothing you can do. Rook f7, queen g7 checkmate will end the game. So after bishop captures on c4, queen to e8, stopping queen to g6, keeping around that e6 pawn, and now just queen captures on d2, winning the knight on d2. And okay, Fischer is up in exchange, but his king side is completely devastated. He plays knight e4, goes after the bishop pair because well, the open king, the bishop pair, that will not end well for you. So queen d3, he eliminates the bishop, captures, and rook to f6. Now he defends on e6, he adds another defender to g6, and he will try to hold on here. Queen e4, we have rook to c8, attacking the bishop, bishop to b3, and now queen to d7, getting the queen into the game. Rook to d1, and now rook to e8, adding more defenders here. And you have to be careful. Once those pawns start marching forward, the position will open up and Fischer's king will be in trouble. And that is exactly what happens. Pawn to f4. Now, Fischer's best option would be just to unpin, but he doesn't want to waste precious time, so he tries to survive without unpinning. He plays queen h7, queen to e5, and queen to f5. Now hoping for a captures and captures, but even that would be a pretty bad deal for him. It was played in the game, but captures and e4 is just terrible for black, because after rook f7, not due to f5, but rather d5. This is the crushing idea, and there's just no good reply here. If you try something like rook fe7, then d6 is just crushing, and after rook d7, f5, and you're just breaking through here. This is unplayable. But after queen f5, g4 was played, and now Fischer plays queen captures on e5. We have d captures on e5, pawn to rook to f7, and now pawn to f5. So similar to what we've discussed, not as potent though. And here rook to c7. Unpinning with king to f8 is still the better choice, but Fischer just refuses to waste precious time. He goes rook to c7, we have rook to d6, and now rook to c5. Okay, putting pressure on the e5 pawn, we have bishop captures on e6 with check, king f8, and now bishop back all the way to b3. Interesting approach. You have to give up the e5 pawn, that's out of the question, but bishop d5 can definitely be considered. If rook captures pawn to e4, white is still doing amazing here. So after king f8, bishop back to b3 was played, rook c captures on e5, and now rook captures on h6. We have rook captures on e3, and now rook to g6, going after the g5 pawn, and then of course Ólafsson will try to win the game using the f and g pawn. And if Fischer wanted, he could just give back the exchange. Captures, and now something like rook e3, captures, and okay, Fischer is still down a pawn, but with two connected pass pawns on the queen side, this can easily be played out to a draw. But I imagine Fischer wanted more here. He played rook 8 to e4. He goes after the g-pawn, and then he will try to go after the white king. But now this allows rook captures on g5, rook to g3. This is over pushing it by far. Like I said, I'm sorry I don't have the clock times for these old tournaments. I would very much love to know what the situation on the clock was, but now Fischer is completely lost, and I'm sure you guys can see why. Rook to g8 check, king e7, and pawn to g5. This is the killer idea, because now once Fischer plays rook to e2, and that is exactly what he does, you guys of course see the winning move. In case you don't, feel free to pause the video and find the only winning idea for Friedrich while I give you a couple of seconds. The only winning move is bishop to d5. Not the most difficult one to spot, but yeah, guarding that g2 pawn is key, and now those pawns are marching forward. Fischer tried king to d6, we have bishop to f3, and now Fischer has no better move than rook captures on a2, which he plays, and Friedrich continues pushing his passed pawn. Pawn to f6, king e6, and here comes the most beautiful move of the game, I believe, and that is a rook to e8 with check. You can still slow play this king f1, king h1. I mean, anything you play here will be still winning, but rook e8 is just instant resign. And the reason for that is that, of course, if you go away from the rook, let's say you play king d7, then f7, f8, and you get a queen into the game. And if you go king f7, which makes more sense, you attack the rook, you will play king g6, you will go after the pawns, bishop h5 is checkmate. That is the move. Fischer's favorite piece, the light square bishop, is what came to be the end of him. And Friedrich did amazingly in this game, but also in this tournament. Like I said, he won his Grandmaster title a little bit earlier in 1958, so he already came as a Grandmaster into the tournament. Fischer won his Grandmaster title during this tournament, and he also stopped Fischer from getting close to third place, I believe. Fischer got 6th place in the tournament, and only the top 6 qualify for the candidates tournament of 1959. Fischer got 6th place. Ólafsson got 5th place, and we all know who won the tournament, none other than the great Mikael Tal, who also won the 1959 candidates tournament, who then also won his World Chess Championship match against Mikhail Botvinnik in 1960. So it was, you know, pretty great year, pretty great period for the magician from Riga. But yeah, there were other incredible players. Fredrik Ólafsson was one of them, and he beat Fischer very nicely in this game. I also covered the game he played against Fischer in the 1959 candidates tournament. Will be the first link in the description below, so check that out as well. Definitely a nice game by Ólafsson, you know, alongside this one. So yeah, that's the game. Hope you guys enjoyed it, paying a little tribute to Iceland's first Grandmaster, Fredrik Ólafsson. I would like to thank Peter Van Dust, Derek King, Charles Benjamin Flynn, Diane Schwartz, and Ilya Maltsev for your contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot, I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing to check up on your wonderful suggestions and whatever else happens in the chess world. And you guys always troll me that whenever I pay a tribute to someone by beating Bobby, I always say how great Bobby was, you know, but it's just Bobby was so strong that, you know, if you beat him, there's just no greater tribute. So, I mean, it is what it is. Thank you all. I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day.